On the day everyone believed my husband was gone, I was already wearing black. Not because someone told me to, not because there was a funeral. I wore it because my body knew something my heart was still refusing to accept. The house was full that morning. People moved quietly, like they were afraid of the walls. Someone made tea. Someone else opened a window. I heard words. A single choice can change your life forever. Today, I'm sharing how betrayal forced me to choose myself when no one else would. Before the first chapter unfolds, please subscribe and hit like to help us reach others who might need to hear this. I'd love to know where you're watching from tonight. Leave your city name in the comments so I can welcome you personally. And now, the story begins. Words like strong and time and God's plan. I nodded. I smiled. I said thank you. Inside, everything felt empty. They said my husband had disappeared. They said there were no signs of a struggle. They said sometimes people don't come back. When the police officer finished speaking, he paused and looked at me with soft eyes. That was when I knew. That look only comes when hope is already slipping away. After everyone left, I stood alone in the kitchen, the same kitchen where my husband once stood behind me, arms around my waist, asking what was for dinner, the same floor where we argued about nothing important, the same door he walked out of 3 days ago, saying he would be home before sunset. I picked up my phone for the 100th time, knowing there would be nothing there. No missed calls, no voice messages, no goodbye. Then my phone vibrated, just once. I remember thinking it must be a mistake, a wrong number, a notification, anything but what it was. The message was short, no name, no explanation. It said, "Please don't tell anyone, I'm not gone." I sat down slowly, like my legs no longer trusted me. Everyone believed my husband was missing. Some believed he was dead. But in that moment, holding my phone in shaking hands, I realized something far more painful. My husband was alive, and he had chosen to disappear from me. My name is Sarah. Before all of this, I believed I lived an ordinary life. Not perfect, not exciting, just steady, and steady felt safe to me. I met my husband Daniel more than 12 years ago. He was quiet, the kind of man who listened more than he spoke. He didn't make promises loudly, but he kept the small ones. To me, that mattered. We built a life slowly, a rented house at first, secondhand furniture, shared routines, morning coffee, evening silence. We were never the couple people stared at, but we were the couple people trusted. Daniel worked long hours. I worked part-time and took care of the house. We didn't talk much about feelings, but I thought we understood each other without words. We never had children. It wasn't a fight, it wasn't a decision. Time just moved forward, and one day we realized it had already decided for us. Still, we stayed together. In the last year, something began to change, not suddenly, quietly. Daniel came home later. He smiled less. He checked his phone more often. When I asked if something was wrong, he said no. When I asked if he was tired, he said just work. I believed him because I wanted to. The morning he disappeared felt normal. That is the cruelest part. He kissed my forehead. He picked up his keys. He said, "I'll be back before dinner." Dinner came, then night, then morning. By the second day, people were calling. By the third, the police were sitting in my living room explaining things slowly, carefully, like I was made of glass. They found his car near the highway. No wallet, no phone, no signs of violence. They told me to prepare myself. That was the morning my phone buzzed, and everything I thought I knew about my marriage began to fall apart, quietly, piece by piece. I didn't answer his message right away. I stared at it until the words stopped making sense. "I'm not gone." I finally typed his name. He replied instantly. "Yes, it's me." No apology, no explanation. I asked where he was. He said he couldn't tell me. I asked why he left. He said he felt like he had been disappearing for years. When I asked why he didn't talk to me, he said, "I didn't know how." That sentence stayed with me longer than anything else, because I would have listened. Over the next few days, he only texted at night, short messages, careful words. He asked me not to tell anyone. He said it would be easier that way. Meanwhile, his family cried in my living room. His mother held my hands and begged me to believe he would come back. And every night, I lay in bed realizing something slowly and painfully true. My grief was real, but so was his choice, and one of us was carrying the weight alone. After that first message, my life began splitting into two worlds. One world was loud, phones ringing, people knocking on my door, police officers asking the same questions again and again. The other world existed only on my phone screen. Short messages, careful words, a husband who was alive but no longer mine. I lived in both worlds at the same time, and it slowly exhausted me. Daniel told me not to reply too quickly. He said it might look suspicious if someone was watching his phone records. I didn't even ask who might be watching. I simply followed his instructions. That should have been my first warning. During the day, I played the role everyone expected from me. The worried wife, the patient wife, the woman holding herself together while waiting for a miracle. At night, when the house was quiet, Daniel came back to me through text messages. He asked how things were going. I told him people were still searching. I told him his mother barely slept. I told him his sister came by every day. Sometimes he replied, sometimes he didn't. When he did, his answers felt distant, like he was already living a different life somewhere else. One night, I asked him directly if he was safe. He said yes. I asked if he had food. He said yes. I asked if he missed home. There was a long pause. Then he wrote, "I miss the idea of it." I read that line again and again. The idea of home. Not me, not our life, just the idea. The next day, Emily came over again. She looked tired. Her eyes were swollen from crying. She sat on the couch and held her phone tightly, like she was afraid of bad news arriving at any moment. "I had a strange thought," she said quietly. I felt my chest tighten. She said, "Do you think he might have left on purpose?" I kept my face calm. I shook my head slowly. "I don't know," I said. "Daniel wouldn't do that." Even as I said it, the words felt unfamiliar in my mouth. Emily nodded, but she didn't look convinced. She stared at the floor for a long time before standing up. "If you hear anything at all, please tell me." After she left, I locked the door and leaned my back against it. I slid down until I was sitting on the floor. I had never lied so much in my life. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, carefully, lie by lie. That night, Daniel told me something that changed how I saw the past. He said he had been unhappy for years. Not angry, not depressed, just quietly unhappy. He said he felt invisible. He said he felt like life had already been decided for him, and there was no room left to breathe. I asked him why he never told me. He said, "You were always so calm. I didn't want to disturb that." That hurt more than I expected, because my calm was never distance. It was trust. I told him I would have listened. I told him we could have talked. We could have changed things. He replied with one sentence, "Some things feel easier to escape than to fix." I didn't respond after that. I placed the phone beside my bed and stared at the ceiling. The fan hummed softly above me. Outside, rain began to fall, light at first, then steady. I thought about all the moments I missed, all the quiet signs I ignored because I believed love was supposed to be peaceful. Over the next few days, the pressure increased. The police asked to speak with me again. They wanted to retrace Daniel's last movements. They asked if he had seemed stressed, if he had talked about leaving, if he had mentioned anyone new in his life. I answered carefully, truth mixed with silence. Daniel warned me not to say too much. He said the attention was dangerous. He said he needed time. He said everything would settle soon. But nothing settled. His mother stopped eating properly. She sat at my kitchen table, holding Daniel's old mug, rubbing her thumb over the chipped edge. "He wouldn't do this," she whispered one afternoon. "He loves us." I nodded. I didn't trust my voice. That night, I asked Daniel if he had spoken to his mother. He said no. I asked if he planned to. He said, "It would only make things worse." I asked, worse for who? He didn't answer. A few nights later, I asked him something I had been afraid to ask. "Is there someone else?" The reply didn't come immediately. Minutes passed, then more. When the message finally arrived, it was short. "There is someone who understands me." I closed my eyes. That was enough. He said they met through work at first, then through conversations that lasted longer than they should have. He said she listened without expecting anything from him. I wondered what he thought I had been doing all these years. I didn't ask her name. I didn't want to know. The next morning, I woke up feeling older, not in my body, but in my heart, like something soft inside me had finally accepted the truth. Daniel didn't disappear because he was lost. He disappeared because he wanted to be found somewhere else. A few days later, he sent a message that felt different from the others. He said, "I may need your help soon." I asked what kind of help. He said the investigation was becoming uncomfortable. People were asking too many questions. He said my reactions mattered. "What do you mean?" I asked. He said, "You need to stay the same. Keep telling them I believe he'll come back." That sentence stayed with me all day. Stay the same. He wasn't asking me to heal. He wasn't asking me to move forward. He was asking me to perform. That night, I sat alone at the kitchen table, the same chair where he used to sit, scrolling through his phone. I looked at my reflection in the dark window. For the first time, I didn't see a grieving wife. I saw a woman being quietly used, and something inside me began to change. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough for me to know that the next choice I made would decide the rest of my life. I did not reply to Daniel's message right away, the one where he asked me to stay the same. I left my phone on the table and walked into the bedroom. I sat on the edge of the bed and looked around the room as if I were seeing it for the first time. Our room, the room that had held years of quiet mornings and long nights. Nothing looked broken, and yet everything was. When I finally picked up my phone, I felt calm. Not numb, not angry, just clear. I asked him one question. "How long do you expect me to do this?" The reply came slowly. "I don't know," he wrote, "until things settle." Things, not people, not feelings, just things. I asked him if he planned to come back. There was a pause long enough for me to make tea, forget about it, and reheat it again. Then his answer arrived. "I don't think so." That was it. No explanation, no apology, no goodbye. Just a sentence that ended 12 years of marriage. I placed the phone down gently, like it might break if I moved too fast. I didn't cry. My body felt too tired for that. Instead, I sat very still and listened to my breathing. In that moment, I understood something simple and painful. Daniel didn't need my love anymore. He needed my silence, and I was done giving it. The next morning, I called the police officer who had been assigned to Daniel's case. My voice shook slightly at first, but then it steadied. "I need to tell you something," I said. We met later that day. I sat in the same chair as before, under the same bright lights, but this time I wasn't waiting for answers. I was giving one. I told them Daniel was alive. I told them he had contacted me. I told them he had asked me to keep quiet. The officer didn't look surprised. He nodded slowly, like he had been expecting this all along. He asked if I had proof. I handed over my phone. That was the end of my silence. After that, everything moved faster than I expected. The police contacted Daniel's workplace, his family was informed, his disappearance was no longer a mystery. I didn't hear from Daniel that day, or the next. When he finally did message me, his words were no longer calm. He said I had betrayed him. He said I had ruined his chance at a fresh start. He said I didn't understand what he was going through. I read his messages quietly. Then I typed my final reply. I understand more than you think. I just choose myself now. That was the last message I ever sent him. Telling his family was the hardest part. His mother cried, but not the kind of crying filled with panic. This was quieter, heavier, the kind that comes when truth replaces hope. Emily didn't say much. She looked at me for a long time, then hugged me tightly. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "You were protecting him." I nodded, but I shouldn't have been. In the weeks that followed, my life became very quiet. No more police visits, no more searching eyes, no more pretending. Just me. At first, the silence felt uncomfortable. Then, slowly, it began to feel like peace. I packed Daniel's things carefully, not with anger, not with bitterness, just with respect for the years we had shared, even if they ended this way. Some nights were harder than others. I missed the routine. I missed the idea of him. I missed the life I thought we were building. But I did not miss feeling invisible. I started walking every morning, just around the block at first, then farther. I noticed things I had never noticed before. Trees, neighbors, the sound of my own footsteps. I learned how to sit with myself. Months later, Daniel tried to contact me again. He said he wanted to explain. He said he had made mistakes. He said running didn't fix what he thought it would. I didn't respond. Not because I hated him, but because I no longer needed answers from someone who had already chosen to leave. Time has a quiet way of healing without making promises. I won't say I am grateful for what happened. I wouldn't wish it on anyone, but I will say this. Losing someone who chooses to disappear teaches you something important. Love is not proven by how quietly you suffer, and loyalty does not mean erasing yourself for someone else's comfort. Today, my life is smaller, but it is honest. The house is quieter, but it is mine, and when I sit in the kitchen now holding a warm cup of tea, I no longer wait for messages that never come. I listen to myself instead. It has been a long time since that day. The day my phone vibrated while the whole world believed my husband was gone. Time has passed in a soft way, not rushing, not forcing anything to heal, just moving forward, one ordinary day at a time. People often think healing is loud, that it arrives with big changes, strong decisions, or sudden happiness, but that is not how it came to me. It came quietly. It came in the mornings when I stopped reaching for my phone the moment I woke up. It came in the evenings when I realized I could sit alone without feeling lonely. It came in the small moments when my chest no longer felt tight every time someone said his name. I still live in the same house. For a long time, I thought I would have to leave it behind. I thought the walls would always whisper memories I couldn't escape. But slowly, the house changed with me, or maybe I changed inside it. The kitchen no longer feels heavy. The bedroom feels like a place to rest again. The silence feels softer now. Sometimes I make tea in the evening and stand by the window, watching the sky turn darker. Cars pass, lights come on in other homes. Life continues, the way it always does. And I stand there, breathing, realizing something important. I survived something I never imagined I would. There are still days when I think about Daniel, not with anger, not even with sadness all the time, sometimes just with a quiet curiosity. I wonder where he is. I wonder if he found what he thought he was missing. But I no longer wonder what I did wrong. That question used to haunt me. Was I too quiet? Too calm? Too easy to leave? I asked myself those questions again and again, searching for a version of myself that could have saved the marriage. But over time, I understood something gently and clearly. Someone else's decision to run does not mean you failed to love. I loved the way I knew how. I stayed, I listened, I believed. And that was enough. I also learned something else, something I wish someone had told me earlier. You can be kind and still deserve honesty. You can be loyal and still deserve truth, and you can love deeply without disappearing yourself. For a long time, I thought strength meant staying quiet, carrying pain without complaint, protecting other people's feelings even when my own were breaking. Now I know that strength can also mean speaking up, not loudly, not cruelly, just truthfully. Some people will leave your life while asking you to protect their story. They will call it love. They will call it necessity. They will say it is temporary. But if your silence costs you your peace, it is too expensive. I did not lose my husband that day. I lost the version of my life I thought was guaranteed. And in its place, I found something smaller, but more honest. I found myself. I wake up now without fear sitting in my chest. I plan my days slowly. I take walks. I notice the seasons. I allow myself to rest without guilt. There is a quiet confidence that comes from knowing you chose yourself when it mattered most, not because it was easy, but because it was necessary. If you are listening to this and carrying a heavy secret for someone else, I want you to pause for a moment. Take a breath. Ask yourself gently, who is this silence protecting, and who is it hurting? Love should not require you to disappear. Faithfulness should not mean self-erasure. You are allowed to tell the truth. You are allowed to step out of roles that no longer fit. You are allowed to choose peace, even if others do not understand. Some endings do not come with closure. Some stories do not tie themselves neatly, but that does not mean they don't end. They end quietly. They end when you stop waiting. They end when you stop carrying what was never meant to be yours alone. Today, when I hold my phone, it is just a phone again. Not a lifeline, not a source of fear, not a door I keep open for someone who already walked away. And that, more than anything, feels like freedom. If this story stayed with you, I hope it reminded you of something simple and true. You deserve honesty, you deserve peace, and you deserve a life where your presence is not taken for granted. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let go, quietly, with dignity, and with your heart still intact. And sometimes that quiet ending is actually a beginning.